So it's so good to be here with all of you all and have a celebration in this beautiful, beautiful library. Do I need to turn something on? No. I'm good? Can y'all hear me? Okay, great. My name is Bryan Boyles. I'm Executive Director of Mass Humanities. It's wonderful to be here in Athol. This is a legislative reception, so we got to keep it moving because people have schedules and many commitments. Like I said, we're from Mass Humanities. We've had the great privilege of working with the folks here in Athol as well as people around the state, and some of them are here today. So this is kind of the culmination for us in a lot of ways of the Museum on Main Street tour. And I want to talk about that briefly and just thank a few people, and then we're going to get on to hear from some other folks who have helped to make this possible. Mass Humanities has worked with Smithsonian for 2 years now, first to prepare for this tour, then to select the host sites, and then to work with each of them in order to develop the programs and the exhibition and all the great things that people in this town are getting to experience today. I should say that we are a private foundation based in Northampton. We serve the entire state as the affiliate of the National Endowment for the Humanities, but I will tell you we are Western Mass people, and we are also often, a lot of us are Central Mass people too. It's an honor to work with the Smithsonian. I think you all probably have memories of the Smithsonian. I know for me, my mom, her best friend lived in Washington, D.C. and worked as a secretary. And so we would go to the Smithsonian when I was a little kid. And there are, amazing things at the Smithsonian, but my mom's thing was always Archie Bunker's chair and Howdy Doody. And those were the things that she made a big deal about. And it always, for me, I think, brought home that was a place that belonged to all of us. It wasn't just about the most austere, valuable thing. It was about what you yourself related to. And I think what's amazing about Museum on Main Street, it gives each of these communities that chance. Maybe not to have Archie Bunker's chair here, but to bring people together, to remind them of why these are important places, to ask big questions, and to preserve such amazing traditions that are going on and being rebuilt and renewed all over Massachusetts. The folks in Athol have done amazing work. I think you'll see some of the exhibition that they put together. There are programs going on all the time. I do want to recognize that our friends from Turner's Falls are here. I think our friends from Sheffield are going to be here, Rutland. We started this whole thing in Essex. We moved on to Hull. What's been amazing is that these 6 communities and the people that work at these libraries and museums have actually formed their own community. It's not often in Massachusetts that we get to have those kind of conversations across the different town lines and talk about these things. Fortunately, they've all been in touch with each other this entire time, and I think it's what's made this a successful tour, but I think for Mass Humanities, a real learning experience. We went into this wanting to get to know rural Massachusetts better. I feel confident that we are. Also glad that we'll be renewing our grants to each of these 6 sites over the next year, so that we're really talking about a 3-year relationship with each of these towns. And I think that's going to make us a better organization and able to support more people in the coming years. I also want to make sure that I thank the folks who have made this possible on the funding side. So we received funding from National Endowment for the Humanities, but we also had really generous sponsors all across the state. I'm so glad Charlie's here from Big Y. He was a major contributor. It's actually been great to get to know Big Y's story because it is a story that I think a lot of us can relate to, of a family-owned business that's done all this evolution, continues to work with people all over the state. I mentioned the National Endowment for the Humanities. We have been really, really happy to partner with the Rural Policy Advisory Commission. We knew going into this that we needed to know more. We wanted to think about not just the great histories, but the policy questions these communities faced. We said at the outset, you are catalysts for conversation. You are people that are actively becoming and staying common ground, which when you think of everything we've gone through since we started this tour in 2021, it's amazing that you all have been able to do that, and you've tackled tough conversations. What we hope to do is when this is all done, come back with a report so that our legislators can see the things you brought up as being important to you. You use the humanities to talk about development, and climate, and agriculture, and tourism, all the things that I think all of us wrestle with. Rural Massachusetts, and I think my friend Joe Comerford has often said this, is an incubator for so many solutions. We want to make sure as Mass Humanities that we bring that back to folks all around the state so they can learn alongside you all. It has been really an honor for me to work with so many of you, but I have to say the person that I really am honored to work with every day is Jen Atwood. She is our program officer at Mass Humanities. She's been the person who has coordinated the trainings and the advertising and the conversations and the questions, the relationship with the Smithsonian, making sure everybody got their checks on time, and amazingly working with you all to mean that the last time I see this exhibition, it looks about as good as it looked the first time I saw the exhibition, which is amazing because it's been in and out of trucks and loading docks all over this state. So thank you, Jen. I'm so glad to get to work with you. The exhibition, as you'll see, touches on themes like identity. It touches on land and persistence and community. You all bring hope and belonging to all of us. That's what Museum on Main Street has done. It's reminded us why we live in these places and why we continue to fight for them. Mass Humanities is fortunate to have strong legislative champions, to have a great relationship with Mass Cultural Council, and we wanted as much as possible throughout this tour to bring those folks together, to thank them, and also so they could see all the great work that's been done here. So it is, as we get started with this reception, my real privilege to welcome our friends Joe Comerford and Susannah Whips to come up and talk about Athol and the Museum on Main Street.
What a beautiful display, and what a beautiful library. Every time I come in here, I remember the work that the town and all of the great folks here at the library did to see this building expanded, and it's just such a blessing to be here. What an amazing demonstration we have here, and walking through and seeing the lunchbox with the Beverly Hillbillies on it. I had a Holly Hobby, but I think everybody out there remembers that tin lunchbox that we'd carry to school when we walked 2 miles both ways in a foot of snow, uphill both ways. But I'm just so glad to be here today, and I appreciate Bryan, Charlie, Jen, all of the people who helped facilitate this, because it's really important when people talk to us about being legislators. They sometimes compare us to Washington and wonder if it's that head-to-head. It is, but it's not Republican versus Democrat. It really is rural versus urban, or Western Mass versus, and not versus in a way, but allowing us to have our voice. And we as legislators always join forces together to make sure that we are heard. I'm often reminding my colleagues in Boston when they turn on a faucet exactly where their water comes from. I quiz them now and then, and nobody knows the 4 towns that were flooded, but we remind them. I see Deb here. Our farmers are providing food for people across the Commonwealth. We're providing the water, and our trees are breathing for everybody in the Commonwealth in our state parks. So we are contributing to the Commonwealth. And I'm just happy to be here and see it recognized, and so happy to have you here in my hometown that I'm so proud of. And I look forward to seeing our new Director of Rural Affairs, Senator Gobi, in our communities and around. You're missed as a senator, but you are in the right spot to help us out in our rural communities. And Senator Comerford has jumped in and filled your shoes, and we're thrilled to have her here. Senator Comerford.
Thank you so much. You know, Rep. Whips is being very nice. I'm really flopping around in Ann Gobi's shoes. You are missed, Ann, as Susannah said, but boy, we couldn't ask for a better first Director of Rural Affairs, ever. We are all so lucky. Yeah, I think we should clap again for Ann Gobi. So I just want to briefly join Rep. Whips in thanking Mass Humanities. It is quite thrilling that Mass Humanities has put down roots in Western Massachusetts, right? As we talk about the tip toward Boston, having a state agency or a private partner doing state work here and really tuned to us is wonderful. And we see it reflected in Mass Humanities programming, which often sees us, I feel, right? It resonates with the values of Western Massachusetts. Thank you, Charlie and Big Y, for all you do in communities. Thank you to the Athol Library and to the town of Athol for agreeing to host this beautiful exhibit. As Rep. Whip said so beautifully, You know, in Boston, and Anne knows this, and this is why we're so thrilled she's here. In Boston, we tell the story of Western Massachusetts, of the 4 western counties, or really we shave off the western part of Worcester, Anne, because we're different. We have different values. We face different challenges. We have different opportunities out here. And so when we have strong voices like Mass Humanities, when we have exhibits like this telling the different story of what it means to live in rural Western Massachusetts, it makes us all just a little bit stronger, I think. Brings us together for these kind of conversations, helps Susannah and I, Rep. Whips and I, fight harder on behalf of Athol and the North Quabbin in Western Massachusetts, because we get to see the beauty that's really inherent in rural America and, of course, rural Western Massachusetts. And there's so much beauty here. I want to really applaud the programming that has gone along with this exhibit. It is thrilling. Thank you, Jen, and Bryan and the Athol Library for doing this work. It is unbelievable to see the story of our community come up so vividly in all that you're doing, and the exhibit that the library put together is beautiful. And I think the last thing I'll say is, you know, one of the things that we have to work together on, and Rep. Whips and I know this, and of course Senator Gobi knows this, is that we have a new administration in Boston. And this new administration, I do believe, wants to see 351 cities and towns. Well, 181 of them are rural. So more than half of our communities in the Commonwealth identify as rural communities. We're lucky that Anne Gobi is like the Energizer Bunny of people. But this is an opportunity for us to say to Governor Healy and Lieutenant Governor Driscoll, you want to govern 351 cities and towns equally? Well, there's different things that we need in rural Western Massachusetts and the rural parts of the Cape and rural Central Mass. And it looks like, you know, differential funding for schools or transportation or pilot payments, which are payment in lieu of taxes, on and on and on. I won't do a budget soliloquy, but there's ways in which we can join together, bolstered by what we're seeing here, and fight harder and smarter, especially linking arms with Senator Gobi. And I'm nothing but hopeful. And a lot of it is because of this great exhibit and the great work that brought it here. Thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you.
I'm so bad at selfies like that.
I'm doing my best. I'm doing my best. As Senator Comerford said, we're so happy to have, I'm going to say Director Gobi, or she told me Anne, with us today. We were really lucky because Senator Gobi was also the senator for Rutland, so she got to know Museum on Main Street earlier in this process. And I would say for any legislator that's out there, getting on board with Mass Humanities may mean that you end up in a cabinet position by the end of the tour, so keep that in mind. It means a lot to us that there is a director of rural affairs, and we really do appreciate that, and we hope to continue to support you in your work. So we'd love to have you come up and say a few words.
I always tell people I never like going behind these things because I look like a Pez dispenser. You know, they're a little too high for me. I know that legislators have to leave, but you have a crackerjack representation here in Athol, and I think you know that. Susie and Joe fantastic and represent the area so well. You know, I think one of the things that's kind of interesting about this exhibit, if you've had an opportunity to take a look at it, you know, you realize how important rural Massachusetts is, rural is to the United States. But think about our area of rural Massachusetts and what it means to our state as a whole. And, you know, we talk about the challenges, and when you look through this exhibit, and then obviously there are challenges, right, that face us. But the other part of it is the things that we can champion, the things that we can take credit for, and the things that we can really elevate and let the rest of the state know how important we are to them. Because as Joe mentioned, you know, 181 towns in the 2020 census are classified as rural in Massachusetts. 181. I'm going to try to get to all 181. I don't think I'll do it in the first month or two, but I will. I will get there because it's important. And it's important to sing that story. And part of it, and I want to thank you, Bryan and Jen, for making sure that that story is heard here. And Jean and your team, you have done a fantastic job. And when this comes down, the museum on Main Street stays, because that's what this library is. It really is. You know, it's always open to the community, always is there to make sure that people have a place to come, people have a place to learn. And this is a fantastic exhibit. I didn't realize, when did this actually start, Bryan? What year?
We chose the sites in 2021, and then it launched in September of last year.
Right, but has this rural theme been out before with Smithsonian and Mass Humanities?
2019.
Okay, so you know, we're at the forefront of that again too, to be able to sing that story. So, and I'm really thrilled that you chose Athol, and Athol did a lot of work to get the site here, and I know that you did. It was a lot of sleepless nights for you to make sure it would come here. So enjoy the exhibit, and I want to say a special thanks too to my good friend Shaun Suhoski, and I know, Shaun, that we'll be continue to work a lot together with the small town administrators, and rural issues are going to be #1 on the forefront, and I want to thank all of you for having my back for so many years and to have an opportunity to continue to sing the praises of rural Massachusetts. So thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks so much. In each of these towns, there are hardworking people who spend lots and lots of hours to make these places possible. There are volunteers and boards and friends groups. I think that the people that hold our democracy together are public librarians, because they welcome people. We have a few of them here with us today. And I want to make sure that I welcome. I'm gonna welcome Shaun first. So throughout the last year, Jen has been pointing at me during different things, and she's done a great job. But I don't want to skip over Shaun. From the beginning of this, actually, when we put the word out, we were thrilled to have Shaun be part of this because he is the town manager. So this idea that the humanities live right here, and that when we talk about civic engagement, it's not necessarily saying you got to go vote or you got to go vote this way. Rather, it's saying, hey, this is part of how people lead their cities. You know, this is how we make decisions. So it's an honor to have Shaun here. Thank you for pointing to me, Jen. Come on up, Shaun.
I don't know, Bryan, you put it out there, we're going to introduce the librarians, and we're all excited, and then you get to hear from me, right? I'm Shaun Suhoski. I'm the town manager in Athol, and I just want to thank the folks from the Athol Public Library, Pam and Robin and Jean Shaughnessy and her whole family, and all your library friends who worked to put this together. So thank you. That's from a local perspective. It's so great to have arts and culture here in the community in a beautiful building. And Jennifer, I think you assigned me something. I thought I was representing the town, but I'm also here to give a perspective from the Rural Policy Advisory Commission. So when I saw Gobi, Director Gobi was going to be here, it was just great news. And what I want to share with you, and I'm looking at the agenda, challenges and opportunities that Athol or rural communities face. And this is going to be very brief because we want to meet the librarians, and I know there's a refreshments and a reception after. So think about the building. Look at the space we're in. I know it's warm by the windows, right? It is. But those windows look out on a rural community that has an urban core. It's an old mill town, right? Agrarian farms on the fringe. The farm school is noted here in town, and there's a lot of agriculture that still goes on in the North Quabbin region. Yet Athol has served historically as a commercial hub for the small towns in this area. And Athol has gone through fluctuations, much like the communities that are featured in the exhibits behind us. And one of the themes that in this exhibit is about resiliency, community resiliency, as you go through different economic phases and upturns and downturns, and there's new technology and the job market changes, and now all of a sudden you're looking, what's the next step for a community? And it's interesting that I'm standing in the Carnegie portion of the library, right? The historic portion, and if I take 5 steps forward, we're looking to the future. So we have the past and future right here in this structure. And the challenge for the rural communities is to look to that future. Keep your eye on the horizon. How do you adapt artificial intelligence? I've seen the Terminator. I'm a little concerned, right? I've seen the iRobot movie. I don't know. But as much as new technology can be a little bit scary, it also presents a new opportunity. And that's just one example. How do we adapt our local economy to look forward? This exhibit talks about that over decades and maybe even a century, looking at some of these examples. Athol is going through that now. We just had, in association with this exhibit, we had a public forum on the future use of a 100-acre town-owned site, the Bidwell Farm, as it's known locally. And it's got an old farm building right there on the side of the road. It looks pretty cool. Looks good, needs to be renovated, needs a plan. We overflowed the program room downstairs. There were at least 60 people came out on a Wednesday night, and we're gonna be doing a community survey. This type of synergy between this exhibit and the library and engaging the community is important, not just here in Athol, but for all of rural Massachusetts. And I'm just honored to be part of it and to have such a great team and to see the folks here today that are honoring us, Ann and Joe and Susie. Everybody said hi to you. We haven't met yet, but the big Y, I like that, yeah. And Bryan, thank you so much for your agency and for having us participate in this. So thanks, and let's meet the librarians, right? So thank you. I got a selfie too.
The ball, guys. Thank you. And what's even more impressive is Shaun actually has town meeting after this. So yeah, he's working super hard today. As I said, I think people that work so hard for all of us are librarians. And so I'm really happy and honored to bring Jean Shaughnessy up here to thank her on behalf of this community and all of Massachusetts for the work that she's been doing. Jean?
This has been a wonderful opportunity. We had a lot of help. The original committee, when we filled out the application, were Robin Stillman, who's taking a picture, and Pam Hardy, who is in the back row, and Shaun. And Pam, Robin, and I did hours and hours and hours of trainings. Shaun did not. But he did the really important pieces. Right from the very beginning, we're the last stop, and we've benefited from hearing about everybody else's successes. Really was very intimidating, did not help our stress level, but hopefully it worked to our advantage. And it's just been great. We've done loads of programming. Right from the very beginning, we decided to really concentrate on our assets. One of the trainings was about your assets in your community, and we have so many. So our programming and our exhibits tried to introduce people to those assets, tried to reintroduce people to those assets, and we concentrated on our water, primarily the Millers River, which is a big deal. If you look at these pictures over here behind Shane of the floods of 1936 and 38, it was a very big deal because we would be swimming right now if it was at that time period. We have lakes, we have streams, we have the Quabbin Reservoir, which is huge for our recreation and our natural beauty. And the industry that came because of all that water is another asset that we tried to highlight. So water and industry and our land and our wonderful community. So we hope that we have shown people how lucky they are to live here. Some of our programs, we've taken field trips to the New Salem Historical Society, and the Harvard Forest was last Saturday. Great trip. If you haven't been to the Harvard Forest to see their dioramas, please go and go for a hike afterwards and ask somebody to lead you and tell you all about that whole project there. Ken Levine did a diorama of the Rabbit Run Railroad, and he was here, but I think maybe they left. the Historical Society, Ken Vadalis, the late Margaret Young, and J.R. Green all provided us with postcards that we have blown up into pictures on the stairway in the program room. We have pictures on the bulletin boards highlighting Athol and the surrounding community. The Farm Connector organized a farm tour, and they have a panel discussion this Wednesday. Please come back and join in if you want to. Just highlighting all the things that there are to do here, all the benefits that we have by living in this area. So we hope that we've been successful, and we plan to continue. All the pictures are ours to keep. We have a lot of things that we can use for the town hall's 100th anniversary, which is next year. So that's Shaun's part. So thank you very much, and thank you for this opportunity.
Thanks, Jean. As Jean said, the exhibition is up for, I think, another week and a half here, and there are more programs. I hope you'll come. I hope you'll spread the word to other people. When it is over, these folks will pack this up and ship it back to the Smithsonian. The exhibition was developed a few years ago, and there's a couple of different versions of it traveling around the country as we speak. So it's kind of cool to think about when you look at it, is that there may be folks in Kentucky who are about to do the same thing, or people in Minnesota who are about to do the same thing. Again, I think that kind of connectivity, especially in the world we live in right now, is such a strong statement for all of us to make. Mass Humanities is not going away. We will be continuing to support people in Athol through the next year, and we always have opportunities available. So if you know of other organizations in the region, be interested in funding, people we need to get to know, people who are taking the humanities into their own hands and serving their communities. I do hope you'll talk to Jen and I after this, but for now I hope you enjoy the food and some more music. Thank you all so much for coming out tonight.